Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. And if you're watching the video and hear some audio doubling, I think I just figured out what in the hell is going on with that. That's kind of dumb. Anywho, I am your host for tonight, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter and pretty much everywhere else. You can also find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter, CB Caps on Instagram. And the man who brings you that lovely soundboard every week can give you the answer to this question.
Is Brooklyn in the house? Without a doubt.
Agent _70 on Twitter and Instagram.
Sup, everybody?
Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at?
So yes, we're just too busy springing sound effects on each other. That'll be the whole show. That'll be that other show we do. I don't know.
We're literally cutting clips as we're going.
And all right, that has happened on a couple of occasions. So there we go. But not with us tonight. One PCN _dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and his umbrella sites therein. And was looking for a click for him, but I think I got one special for him. That's fine. Not also with us tonight is Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, CB Cron on Twitter. That is the no, it's not. It's the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. And also you can find him at DClickNation on Twitter. That's DKLIQNATION, DClickNation.com, and also Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. And this is brought to you by, us, but we are on the CSPN podcast network, the CSPN.us.
Do it today.
Indeed. And we probably won't have any commercials tonight because we're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, we got the same two that we've had for the last 3 weeks.
And we don't have to, what's the point in keep using the same ones that we don't even know are valid? But until we figure that one out, you can also find us at Google Play, Apple iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Coast for the Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. You should see, I'm just trying to get those voice work dollars in right now. It's not working out very well, but you can send them my way if you want to. As we do every week, first of all, not every week. First of all, I would like to say Happy Halloween for those who celebrate, if that is something to indeed celebrate.
Yes, happy Halloween. I think PCN _dirt is out and about trick-or-treating as we speak, or at least doing something Halloween related. And I suspect
checking some kids for their candy, or his kids for their candy.
Yeah, or I suspect dealing with trick-or-treaters, and Tim Dog 98 may be dealing with some as well.
Yeah, his little one may be a little too young for it, but you never know. But
his neighborhood, right? Exactly. In his neighborhood, that's the thing.
That's a convenient excuse to also to take the little one out.
Exactly. But at least there's certain neighborhoods that are more prone to trick or treating than others.
Sure.
The neighborhood I'm in Brooklyn isn't as conducive to it. So, but it once was. So I remember what it was like going house to house.
Sure, but do you remember full-size candy bars?
No, but we also knew which houses had the best candy and which houses gave you stuff like, we won't even talk smack about certain candies.
Yes, the chaff, as some would say. But yes, the rite of passage for every youngster and grown-up youngsters at this point, because there are a lot of grown-ups that love Halloween for different reasons.
Sure, with the advent of more variety in adult costumes, I think it's
there is that, but yes, but I mean just in general, because some of it's kind of streams out of well, one begat the other one. The costume thing and cosplay thing is definitely
It's a factor.
Venn diagram. Yeah, there's definitely a Venn diagram there that has spread out because the folks who used to love to do it as a kid have now grown up and hey, guess what?
Sure.
Now cosplayers now basically.
Right.
But hey, well, no, that's our little TED talk on cosplay and Halloween. Let us get into the books of the week, starting off with Excalibur #1.
Right. So this is our latest Dawn of X launch. The book is brought to you by Tinny Howard and Marcus Toe. It's a brand new creative team for Marvel Publishing, but these are not creators that are new to the panel. We know Tinny Howard from several of her books that she's written in the past, and Marcus Toe actually has done a few books that we've recognized on the show in the past, including Hacktivist, which was originally a concept by Alyssa Milano. Shout out to Alyssa Milano.
Every excuse to bring that up, he will do. No, I'm just kidding.
It's just that I remember, I kept wanting to. I kept trying to remind myself to grab the Hacktivist trade paperback of the first volume to get him to sign it, but I kept forgetting to grab it over the course of 4 days at Comic-Con.
You also kept wanting to get Alyssa Milano on the show, as I recall, but that's
right. That's she's pretty busy fighting the power as we speak. So
yes, indeed. But back to Excalibur.
Right. So as longtime readers of the X-Men and X-Men satellite titles will know and remember, Excalibur has always been a spin-off that had its basis in Celtic and English legend.
There was magic involved, yes. There was more. Some would say it was more magic involved. It's just that the team was comprised halfway of mutants.
Right.
Or actually, well, technically, mostly, with the exception of Captain Britain and whatever.
Well, I was about to say, Megan, I think, was an alien, or no, it was from an extra, like another dimension.
Right.
Right. So
that's what I'm saying. So it's still,
Well, what was the little? Was it Widget?
Widget, yes.
That was another extra dimensional.
They ended up finding. I don't know whatever happened to them.
See, I remember some of my Excalibur.
I loved the hell out of the original Excalibur book. It was really fun. I loved it. This is not that group. I will go ahead and say that right now.
I learned a lot about Excalibur through Jim Lee's X-Men trading card set.
Nice. Yeah, it was a weird book. Also had Rachel Summers, who is now going by some silly code name now. Which, speaking of code names, a lot of people in this, I say a few people in this book have changed their code names,
right,
or not going by the ones that they're classically known as.
Right. I'll ring the spoiler bell here just so that we can talk a little bit freely about it. But there are some spoilers ahead with regards to these changes.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Yeah, they're not like big earth-shattering things. It's just that okay, yeah. So as Apocalypse said, put, or as he wants to call himself, whatever symbol that is, that reminds me of Prince.
That was weird. I was just like, I was looking back at the Krakoa cipher, and I was like, I don't recognize any of this.
It just looks like a block. Like it's like if you turned on an Atari 2600 and they showed an A, it would look kind of like that with some umlauts by it. Well, not an umlaut, but with a colon beside it or something. So,
I just thought it was weird.
Yeah, I mean, it is totally weird. I'm like, why would you do that? And then it's like telling everybody, hey, call me by this now. I'm like, okay. Which is funny. Trinary was like, sure, I can pronounce that. I'm like, I would like to believe that she was sarcastically speaking for the audience at that moment. We don't know if that's the case or not.
Sure.
Because no one knows how to pronounce that. I just call it a big block A.
Right. So the first thing I noticed, and remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are just barely scratching the surface on the Dawn of X books. So one of the rules of for mutants on Krakoa is to make more mutants. And lo and behold, our first kind of scene on Krakoa in this book
Yes,
is
everyone's favorite couple, everyone's favorite roguish couple.
no, but what I was gonna say is just that opening scene when Betsy's coming through the Krakoa portal is like the precursor, is like the mixer portion of the party in Zion in the Matrix. In the Matrix, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the rave, yes.
Yeah, it's the mixer portion. It's kind of like the hey, we're gonna get together and have some drinks before it gets a little freaky in here.
Right. The funny part about that was like, I know all of these people weren't just gathered here just to greet her. At this one gate, they just happen to be, like you said, in whatever mixer function that they were doing. It just happens to be there,
right,
when she came through. But I was like, wait a minute, did they really just do all? Oh wait, no, that couldn't have been the case. That makes no sense just for her. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Psylocke, but I was like, I don't think she needed all of that.
I just thought it was pretty funny that
it was.
We're getting it in the second Dawn of X book. Like, hey, if you thought we forgot about this, we are on this right now.
Mm-hmm. Although now to think about, well, technically, I guess one side of the gate can open up to any place on Krakoa that they want it to. So the gate that they have at Braddock Manor probably just so happened to open up there because that's where they wanted it to.
Exactly.
But regardless of all of that, then Betsy kind of doesn't want to be called Psylocke now because which I need to read about this part because I was aware that this happened, but I did not know what happened, and that she is back in the possession of her original body.
Right. It actually happened in the Return of Wolverine series, in a side series to Return of Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
It was like Knights in Madripoor or something like that. And I remember reading it like, oh, this might be something that's important. It's one of those, we as reviewers have the benefit of having some access to these books that we normally might not read. And, speaking of tie-ins and whatnot. So it's one of those things where you see it and it's just one of those developments that will probably come up again. And here we are. And they're expanding on it. And it's no coincidence that now that Betsy is back in her original British body without the classic Alan Davis costume that we saw her in, like the flowy sleeves.
Yeah,
this from the 80s.
Right. She has a new one that's slightly inspired by him, but less uniform and less
Exactly. But getting back to her character's origins, we really are touching back on the character's origins, dealing with both her relations and her national origin.
Mm-hmm.
That's where what we were referring to earlier comes in, which is the Arthurian legend and Otherworld and all of the other stuff that is bound to prop right back up now that
a brother who was dead,
right?
Recent defense,
right? So, I vaguely remember that. I'm not sure when that happened.
Yeah, like I said, I admit that I'm not totally up on the X-Men stuff. So like, hey, any one of them dying, I'm like, that happened. Or if I didn't see it at first hand, I'm like, oh, sure, that must happen at some point.
Well, I was about to say, we know Captain Britain's been around for a while.
This is true.
I don't think too much has happened to him other than being in a couple of tie-in books here and there, if I'm not mistaken. He was in War of the Realms.
Yeah, I mean, as far as recent, like, but obviously back in the day, when he was first brought up, and he had his own book, and of course he was I would imagine a UK staple,
right?
And then of course they did have the MI6 book or something or other. But regardless, yeah, he's been around up until recently. We've seen him here and there, and of course being a new father, which is a weird thing to see. And I guess he shaved off his beard because last time I saw him, was when I first saw the kid, and he had a full on beard and was not in costume because he wasn't going by Captain Britain at the time or something. So now he's back, well, which is weird because he's back, but he's not back because now he just got basically used as a pawn. And where there is, speaking of where there is Captain Britain, there is always a foil, and there's always a Morgan Le Fay who shows up in this book, who apparently has a new status, or I don't know if it's a new status, but apparently this is a status that I wasn't aware of before, as far as Avalon is concerned. And all of this plays into like, well, what does this have to do with the mutants? Well, apparently, there has been some, I guess, magical encroachment by Krakoa and the portals therein to Avalon, and Morgan Le Fay is trying to figure out where it's coming from, which he does in the course of this issue. But there's also another thing that comes up later on in the issue that by some people who gets involved with her that ties back to something that hadn't been brought up in a minute, that is in relation to Apocalypse, who is also involved with this because he notices, he tries to figure it out. And I was like, so there was allusions to Apocalypse being magic, or at least at the beginning of this, and I'm like I don't remember that ever being the case.
Right. And having been reintroduced to Apocalypse's history in this book and in just over the course of reading the X-Men, trying to figure out what Apocalypse has been up to as the acknowledged first mutant in history, and how keeping in mind that he's been around for centuries and has played several different roles in history. It's not surprising that he would be familiar with some magical concepts.
True.
But knowing enough about it to communicate with the sorcerers in existence now, I guess that's part of having been a recent supervillain.
Yes. Well, I was about to also part of being around as long as you said because he's had time to study all of this. So I had some, being around this long, I'm sure he's had time to at the very least get versed in it.
Exactly. Well, he may not be a practitioner per se, but he's definitely familiar with it. So
all of that is pretty much starts to bring a team together, knowing everything we just said, and all that kind of comes together to kind of put a team together. And we, at the end of this, the couple of things we end up finding out is that Goldball's got another stupid name now. Which again, the voice of the audience comes through Betsy in her reaction to it, and then we get so the thing that happened with Rogue, who is also going to be a part of this team, because Rogue and Gambit shows up, and and speaking of them talking about making more mutants, that chat has come up between that they are married. But something happens to Rogue in the midst of this, which I'm like, wait, did she just turn into Psylocke? A Sleeping Beauty version of the Psylocke when all that happened? Because it didn't look like Rogue when the things went down.
I think it was just a fluke of coloring, maybe, where we lose the skunk. There's a little bit of criticism here in terms of the way Toe rendered some of the women in this issue.
There's some similarities.
Yes. Yeah. But part of it is we get so spoiled by uniforms, right? Anytime you see their uniforms, you know who's who. But there's a couple of places where the facial similarities throw you off a little bit, and you don't necessarily realize who it is, which characters are interacting. I'll flash back to one panel. A couple of panels when Betsy comes back on Krakoa. I think she's interfacing with Quanon.
Yes.
And I think that's implied, but it's not clear because no one's wearing their superhero costume.
Which brought up another question to me, because I'm like, wait, is Quanon actually a mutant? Or she just happened to be there? Like, wasn't aware. Again, I'm like, those bits of that I wasn't aware of, whether she was actually a mutant before her body was taken over.
I don't believe so.
but she just so happens to be on Krakoa for some odd reason. Which I mean, that's not saying people are not allowed there, but it seems strange that a non-mutant would be there.
I have the sneakiest suspicion that we have missed something.
Yes, probably.
You know, if it's something along the lines of you know, kind of them sharing or splitting powers. So, you know, we'll see. There's also the return of someone who has been long dead thanks to the Krakoa pods. You know,
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. Yeah.
yeah, like long dead. Just wanted to bring him back. You know, bring it up because you know, it's been a while since we've seen this character.
So the funny thing about that is, like, it made me thinking as I was reading another book this week. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Yeah, because of all of this, the mutants that have, like, clearly the mutants that have died have come back and have been explained as, or hey, this is resurrection that just got brought back, like Pyro from last week. And as when we talk about this other book, I'll mention that then because I know I will remember it. But yeah, I guess this opens the door to a whole, you know, bunch of, like, they don't have to use any other conceits, past conceits, to resurrect the person anymore. They're just like, oh no, they're just back because of the, hey, here you go.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. As long as they're a mutant, you know, and they're recorded by Cerebro.
Right, unless there's going to be some things like, oh no, we didn't get that person before, so now we can't bring them back, or for some strange reason, you know, which I could see them doing something like that. But I don't know.
But I thought it was a solid start. It wasn't the best start, but I thought it was a solid enough start. They succeeded in my note said they succeeded at being different, because this is definitely one of the Dawn of X books that is going off in its own separate direction. So, and you know, and obviously the cover spoils what happens to Betsy.
Right. So now she's got a little different status quo there, which, well, I mean, well, she's still a mutant, so that's not the same. That doesn't change that in one bit.
It's more superhero identity. So
yes. Also, speaking of that, there's also another thing I wanted to bring up real quick. In that the Krakoan costume tech they showed off here, I'm like, well, clearly this is this year's Unstable Molecules,
right?
Because I was like, well, wait a minute, how did that happen? And luckily that got explained in the same panel. But I was like, that's convenient. So Krakoa is going to be convenient for a whole bunch of reasons going for
Oh, absolutely.
Which I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing, but it is a thing. We do get a little bit of Hickman mumbo jumbo in here, just kind of round out stuff. But yeah,
sure. I would also add that, you know, it's kind of like they're back at the mansion on steroids, because they've got Forge in the house. You know, they've really set up a status quo where they're equipped, you know, to the gills, basically.
Everything. Yeah, I'm like, okay, yeah, exactly. Like, how is Forge going to fit into this situation when he's mechanical? Well, guess what? They figured that out too, but that was in Hoxbox.
Exactly. So before we move on, I just wanted to make note of one of the variant covers for Excalibur that came out this week. It is by Mike Del Mundo. It is pretty cool. Those of you who have chewed Big League Chew,
Big Chew,
right, will have a good laugh at this cover. This is one more reason for you guys to check out our video feed that is on YouTube. You can tune in live, or you can tune in after the fact and check out what we're showing on camera. This is the variant cover for Excalibur that features Jubilee and the rest of the Excalibur team.
Yes, indeed. That's about to say, yeah, and conveniently, you know, themed for the holiday. Exactly.
All right.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for Excalibur. Like I said, this is definitely not the old group, sadly, but we'll see how this goes. You got anything you want to get to next, or
you know what I wanted to talk about? Invisible Woman #4.
Okay, sure, yeah.
So
pretty good.
For those of you who are not up on this mini series, this has been a trip down memory lane for Sue Storm, who it hasn't been a well explored part of her kind of retconned past.
Which is there's another book that kind of keep that in mind also for something later on.
Right. They have mentioned this before, that she's been a secret agent. It's not a new concept, but this is a mini series that has explored her past and has taken her down memory lane with a previous espionage partner while she was an active agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. What is notable about this entire series is that series writer Mark Waid has continued to push Sue into very uncomfortable places, both with her powers, allowing her to expand on the use of her powers, and with her morals, which is really where this seems to be leading towards in the penultimate issue of the series. So there is a betrayal that was detailed as
a very obvious betrayal.
Right. That was detailed as the cliffhanger for the last issue, and that's where we pick up.
Yeah, like you could see, you saw that. I feel like you could have seen that coming from the first issue, especially when they're first talking. I'm like, well, clearly, something's gonna happen. He's gonna turn.
Right.
But as he says in this issue, and we're talking about her spy partner in spying, Aiden. He didn't turn. He was always like this, and she was basically the one that kept him in check. Which, sure, I guess. But yeah, we definitely see what we very much don't get to see that much in the Fantastic Four, because she's a part of the group. Her own capabilities do come in to display at time, but
it's just a different way of stretching it.
Well, not even stretching it, but I mean, let's face it. Like, I know, I don't want to say stretching it, but yeah, that is a way to say it. But I'm saying is like she is more capable than she is seen to be on FF, because usually they only end up using a couple of her power sets. And her in her own book, you can stretch out in that way and expand on her power set and use it in more different ways than she has with the group. So which is a welcome thing to see, because it's like, okay, yeah, every time you see Sue, it's like, yeah, she's either turning somebody invisible, putting up a force field, rinse, wash, repeat, that kind of thing. Right. And just like there are more uses for her powers, And
that's what I was about to say, and that's what these solo miniseries are always for.
Sure, which she's never had before, so right. Never got a chance to really
explore. Exactly.
Right. So, which is why I say again, it's a welcome thing to see. But
also,
yeah,
I was about to say, another welcome thing to see. Just hold that thought. Is the art by Mattia de Eulis? It's remarkable stuff.
Mm-hmm. That is definitely true. Like the art has been, the last 4 issues has been beautiful.
Yeah, this is definitely like digital paint style.
So, but yeah, the only other thing I was going to say outside of what I've already said is like, yeah, I mean, things kind of just continue to go along. Like the betrayal was kind of obviously if you read the first book, but we get into a wrinkle to where hey, she goes along with some plans, and that plan gets filed up because Maria Hill. Which the one thing this mini has been doing, like there has been a cameo and or guest star by another prominent Marvel woman for almost, I'm not gonna say every issue, but almost every issue. Like Black Widow showed up like in issue 2. I can't remember if anybody showed up in issue 3, but now Maria Hill's shown up in this issue, which sure.
I want to say Widow was there for part of issue 3.
She might have been, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, obviously these are.
No, you're right. She was there for, I think, most of it. Not, I think, because she came in 2, and then 3 she was there for most of it.
Right.
And then, like, okay, hey.
Right. I mean, obviously these are all shield related
characters. There is that, but
that's what happens when you're on a shield type mission.
Sure, there are
you get these. Yeah, I know, but you get these cameos. So
right. Well, yeah, and that's and you are absolutely right about that. But these particular people are just kind of to be probably not coincidental.
Yeah, they're the prominent ones. That's
Right.
that the prominent female ones. That's the point. So you were saying,
Like I expect Quake to show up at some point, which I don't think she's with Shield anymore. Now that I think about it, but
I was about to say, there's only one more issue left.
yeah, and yeah, exactly. So that may or may not be the case. But although, given what happens at the end of this one, and it'll probably either still be Maria Hill again, just cleaning up what she inadvertently started. But you can see it anyway. That's pretty much it for
Or can you? Ha ha ha!
Ha ha ha!
Wait, hold on. You walked right into it, or you set it up.
I did. But
you can see it. Like, no, you can't. Oh boy.
So yeah, so that was that. I would say it is a very good read. If you're a fan of the Invisible Woman, fan of the Fantasy 4, I would say, or just hey, it's just a good read. Period. I would dare say, we'll see how the next book ends this out. They've been doing a lot of just nice and neat, clean endings to a lot of these minis, which is good, but at the same time, it's like, well, that's a little too neat, as we may or may not find out this.
Yeah, we'll see in the next issue. See how it wraps.
Well, not only that, but a couple of books from this week. So I guess Silver Surfer Black. Let's go.
Okay.
Wait, you did read that, right?
I did.
Okay. So this was the one we had a long curiosity about because we weren't sure if and or where or how this was going to affect anything, if at all, which not saying it had to affect anything, but basically where were they going with this?
Right.
Was the main thing. Like, we know there's some elements of it that have shown up in other books and other events in the past, but this one is pretty much, well, actually, take it back. Everything I just said was the case, but there is one thing that was made. I don't know if it was fantastically clear, but if you going back and rereading it for a second, it was like, well, it's definitely clear that something biggish happens at the outset of this. And so the premise is, because of this spinning out of what happened in Guardians, oh, good gracious, like, was it the first issue of Guardians or second issue of Guardians? I don't remember.
Yeah.
When
they were reading the last will and testament of Thanos a long time ago, a black hole opened up. Exactly.
Right. And then, well, not opened up, they got blown into it because of the Black Order.
Right.
Trapped by a Black Order, which everybody else gets saved and Silver Surfer gets thrown back in time. Apparently.
I was about to say the Surfer saves everybody.
Well, yes.
And he's essentially the lone person who gets trapped by the black hole.
Yes, and we thought he was in another dimension, and turns out he's went back into the past.
Exactly.
To the very past, as we come to find out, specifically in this issue, how back it seems like he's gone, which seems to be the big thing of this whole book. It was a weird long, not long, but it was a weird road to get here. Let's put it that way. I guess spoiler alert.
I'll ring it.
We find out that it seems that the Silver Surfer has seeded life throughout the universe, I guess, galaxies. I'm not sure how far it went, but it seemed like based on what he did in this book, he seems to have seeded life.
Right. So there's a couple of things going on here. Just to get back to the story, and then we'll get to the ramifications, which is what you're touching upon. What happens in this issue is the Surfer finds a way to beat back Null, not destroying Null, because obviously we see Null in today's books, but
in the future,
right? But essentially beating him back with after a great strain on his part, basically dispensing all of his power cosmic and using like all this life energy that he was able to pull from around the universe. The
Almost
way
um,
I'm sorry.
almost like a spirit bomb.
Right, that's the part that's the reference that is in my my anime and manga blind spot.
Which that's
Um,
the last issue. So yeah.
exactly, but the way I understood this is that he is basically making kind of completing a cycle, and the worlds that he's seeding are the ones that he destroy or help to destroy as a herald of Galactus.
Right. Which hasn't happened at the time
Right.
of this book.
Right. He's the cause of and the destruction of these worlds.
Right. Which, yeah, that's a weird circular thing. That,
Yeah.
Because even going back, because in one of the issues, he even went back to the birth of Galactus, which another book did this week. So it was weird. So the only other thing to say about that is like the whole thing is trippy in visuals.
Oh, absolutely. Trad Moore is throwing it all at us. We might as well be on acid.
And I say that for a couple of different reasons. One, because I believe Donny Cates who's the writer of this book, recently came out and says like, hey, if you're gonna do a book, make it metal. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he's saying. He was given advice from, I think, Fraction, who said it was like, hey, make it metal, and I think that's what he's going to do with the Thor book. And he's definitely shown that in a sense here with his writing, and Trad Moore's art definitely helps pick that ball up and run.
Definitely.
And also say that like I said, it's because of a couple of things that happens in the course of this issue. One being a new use for his surfboard.
Yeah,
in the way that we have not seen him use it before. Which, like, yeah, okay, that's pretty metal. So I don't know. This was still a real one to read. Like I said, outside of the fact that he has, as we've just said, seeded life that he ends up destroying later on. He doesn't get back to the present from what we see. Two, it looks like, and maybe that was a color thing, or maybe I'm just tripping.
Well, what I was gonna say is, I think eventually, the way, and I'm glad you bring this up, because this is the last half of my one sentence note on this book, which is there's possibly a new status quo.
Right.
It's like you mentioned, but I'm scrolling through our copies now. And from what I can tell, he reconstructs himself in the present. That's the way it sounds.
I didn't see that at all. But
well, if you go back, right, when you go back, it basically is him over endless millennia. I'm quoting it here. Slowly over endless millennia, I am remade. So, he basically reconstitutes himself over time, but what he is in the present is hard to decipher.
Let's just say there's less of one color in the name of the title and more of another color.
That's true enough.
So I seriously doubt they're going to rename him for that color, because that would sound kind of bad.
Well, no, what I was going to say is that's just going to be very strange.
Very much.
But I also like that they drew upon the Stan Lee Mobius 2-issue series, the Silver Surfer series. That they actually pop, they basically quote from it, and they show a panel from it at the end of the book. Right. So that's a nice callback. It's definitely, and Cates is definitely not a stranger to digging through the crates for reference points. Not the crates, but the back issue pins.
Yeah, I got you. So yeah, so that's pretty much that. Where we will see the Surfer in the future, or in, I guess, the future present. We'll. Wait, and I guess the only other thing to say about it is not totally unlike what they did with Galactus, like last year or two, by making him the Lightbringer. They basically changed the status up for a little bit, but now he's back to being
right
again, which that was I don't know who made that decision. Like, why would you? Anyway, so and even in with that, I'm sure the Surfer will be back to being
Sure.
his old classic self at some point.
Right.
Like,
I mean, they could have made something else play Galactus's role because that's the way they've always justified having Galactus.
sure.
You know, like Galactus has a role in the, you know, it has a role in the universe as the destroyer of worlds. So, you know, there must, you know, how many stories have we read where there must always be Galactus, quote unquote?
I mean, sure,
So,
they
they
could have
could have
been
made, right, they could have made another character fill that role to let Galactus continue to be the life bringer, but God forbid they create somebody else.
yeah, or or
Repurpose somebody else, right?
exactly, yeah. So yeah, like I said, we'll see if that. And there is another thing, but there's supposed to be that one cosmic event incoming that's coming up. So maybe some of this will play a role there.
Sure.
We don't know, but until we get to that point, we can push on to
What's next?
So I guess we do one more and then we do rapid fire.
Sure.
Which I guess we technically doing most of your books anyway. All of your
Yeah.
books.
Yeah. The last thing I've got is there's two more, either Black Panther or Friendly Neighborhood.
Let's do Friendly Neighborhood.
Sure.
I love this issue.
This was a pleasant surprise for me this week.
I don't know. So I feel like Friendly Neighborhood has kind of always been, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 issues, pretty light.
Sure.
And for the most part fun. So this one just kind of upped the ante on that. Now, granted, I say this has not. I'm fairly certain I have not read the first arc of this, and I think I kind of came in. Actually, I'm not sure where it came, but it came in like somewhere in probably like 6 or 7, something like that.
You mean
so
after they? Well, I mean, we were you have to. I think you read when they introduced. I heard a rumor.
Well, yes,
So that was the first arc.
Right? Was it?
Yeah, that's when, because that's where all this comes from.
Then I must have missed something in that then, because there's
been in between, because we're up to issue what, 12? 13. Yeah, no, there's definitely been some. They've touched back upon the Under York stuff, which is what we're dealing with here.
Right, and that's the part that I wasn't familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember being familiar with.
Right, that's what you probably missed out on, as did I, because to catch everyone up on this, this series started out with the introduction of a concept called Under York, and there is. It's isolated in a cavern deep. Shout out to Binge Mode, deep under Manhattan since the middle of the last century.
Indeed.
So, there's several characters that have been introduced that have created some tension, and that's where this story moves forward.
Which, weirdly enough, it's part of it, and I hate to make this comparison, but there's going to be a couple of those probably. This kind of reminds me of, but this is different because these people were like at the center of the earth. Basically, in Starfire's series from last year, a couple of years ago, there was a fairly similar concept, except for like these were like people that just lived under the earth, like not like these people. Like these people are more like, hey, these are displaced people that happen to make a place deep under, under Manhattan. Whereas, like I said, these other people that I'm referring to were near the center of the earth, deep in the middle of the earth, and they were wasn't alien, but it was basically just another civilization.
Oh, okay. They're not like the Morlocks who were just in the
yeah, not really.
In the sewers.
There's you can kind of make a couple of comparisons, but I don't think there were, But no, it was like it's just like no, this is just another civilization. It just so happened to be here, in the center. So yeah, and that's what I was kind of thinking about this. I was like, well, wait, couldn't this have been the Morlocks? But nah, goes like way deeper than that.
Deeper than that, yeah.
Because this is basically just seemed like, well, if you took all of the people that were displaced, and they made a place for themselves, like this would be that, except for this just like way deep under, under New York. So who's to say that there's a real place like that? We don't know what's under New York, except for we don't know.
There's turtles.
them rats got yeah, exactly. Them rats got to come from somewhere. So, but that being said, so the Spidey and the Fantastic Four, who he's teamed up with, go to New York, and come to find out they're in the midst of a revolution, which they end up taking a part of, but not a fully direct part of. Let's just say, like, they have a hand in it, but they don't fully take it on. They don't fully take it head on. And there's a couple of good, like, actual laugh out loud moments in this issue, particularly with Spidey and Reed Richards.
Right.
And I love that. And they even got Johnny in on one of them, I guess, as well, which is really funny. Let's just say Spidey's bros are kind of brack.
Right. What I was gonna say is this is a pleasant byproduct of Spidey's secret identity having been revealed back to the Fantastic Four. Reestablishing that part of that part of continuity and that status quo. So that they've always been, in terms of the characters that Spidey interacts with, he's always been more open with them than pretty much anybody else.
I mean, considering when he first started, he basically
tried to join them. Right. So,
yes.
He's always he tried to join the FF. He's never been exactly a willing participant in the Avengers. So
yeah. So there is that. But it was like that if you read it for anything else, read it for the Science Bros scene. But the whole story, even if you don't know what else is going on, previously, this is a pretty good and fun read.
Sure.
This is definitely a potential click of the week for me.
Oh, it is for me too, because it's fun.
Yeah. I made a note about, because there was that one particular the part with Spidey, Reed, and Johnny, where they were doing a thing, and it just reminded me of this video game that is out that kind of has a similar mechanic. Which was kind of funny, except for they were kind of actually talking them through it, except without using a book or whatever. So it was kind of funny. And like I said, Spidey and Reed's interactions just in general were pretty great, except before that. So Science 5.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Which that reaction you heard from Agent 70 was pretty much Ben and Johnny's reaction to
pretty much.
But that's why I loved it. So yeah, like I said, check this issue out if you get a chance. Well, I guess
we can go into rapid fire because I only have one book left.
Sure, go for it.
Spinning it up. We might as well talk about Black Panther number 17.
Yep, which we both read.
Right. My note pretty much sums up the book, which is that the threat of space and Jaraka continues with the symbiote in tow, and they have plans for his long dead earthly counterpart.
Yes, which essentially means that Killmonger is more than likely going to come back.
Right. Spoiler from the cover.
Yeah, basically. Like,
true.
There was nothing I just said is gonna.
It's true. There is absolutely no bones about it. We are heading in that direction.
Yeah, which means the cycle continues again.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, well, maybe they'll do something different with it. Also, there was something that was kind of noticed. So Tetu and Zinzi are back, who were antagonists from the last volume, I want to say.
Yes.
Starting out the last volume.
Yes.
They come back and work for the Njidaka, aka Space Symbiote. And it seems as if Tetu has picked up another power or something, which brings me, because from what I remember reading beforehand, is like he has power over nature, but what he ends up doing at the end of the book kind of reminds me of another mutant who should be back, and that's where I bring in what I said earlier. Where's Gateway? Somebody out there is like, Yeah. So somebody else is out there like, why do you care? Because we got Manifold, who was Manifold is basically a teleporter. He had a mentor named Gateway, who, if you are a fan of the 90s X-Men, you remember when they were in Australia and they had quote unquote died. Gateway was the one that was teleporting them all over the place. And apparently he was
I hate to date us because that's actually 80s X-Men. But yes. Like late like mid to late 80s.
I did the exact same thing last week. You're gracious.
But,
I apologize. But regardless,
because Gateway was because just very quickly, Gateway was introduced after Fall of the Mutants, and look that one up, kiddos. So but
no, that's good because I mean
but in any event, as Roddykat was mentioning, Gateway is related,
right? Because the powers that Titu seemingly takes on looks to seem to be the same way as Manifolds and or more specifically Gateways,
right?
In the execution. So, which brought me to ask the question, and I don't know if that's going to get answered here or anything. There would be something that's like, oh no, yeah, he's the X-Men brought him back, but then I killed him again and took his powers some kind of way. I don't know. They probably wouldn't do that to something like that. I don't think it's that serious, but regardless, that was just something I was thinking about during the course of this, because I'm fairly certain he's never had the power to teleport previously. Pretty certain about that. And I apologize for all the clicking. I'm trying to get some behind the scenes stuff out of the way. Is that it? Oh. Well,
yeah.
No,
I was gonna say, I just thought of a new clip to load up. Let's hope YouTube doesn't hit me with an ad.
Things that make you say.
What was that?
It was a little quick.
Things that make you say.
Oh.
Things that make you say.
Yeah, that's not the best rendition of it, but
but
might be something to hunt down.
Nice. So that being the case, we are going to go into finish up rapid fire with my stuff. Let's see. For Fantastic Four Grand Design #1. So this is going to sound mean. Tom Scioli, whatever, it's pretty much still ripping off Ed Piskor again. The art, I will say, the art in this is probably as clean as it was in GoBots. Thankfully, because that art he did in Transformers where GoBots was terrible. And now that I'm thinking about it, that was a stylistic choice and not that he intentionally did. Regardless, Scioli seems to have this thing. So either he or someone around him has called him an art tour, and that's a bad thing. That's basically like Kanye calling himself a genius, and it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that all to say this. So when he does books, which I still say they should have given us to Ed Piskor, but we know the reasons why Piskor didn't want it, because he didn't have time for it. And I think he said his knowledge wasn't.
Yeah, I was about to say he wasn't as passionate about it because he grew up an X-Men fan. And that's what he wanted. He really wanted to cover that period of X-Men that he, knew and loved.
And I totally understand that. But still, that being said, the guy who has, and I shouldn't say ripped off his style, but because both of their styles is, they've gotten from somewhere else,
They're definitely indie based.
Yes, for certain. But if you told me that, hey, Tom Scioli is the Eminem version of Ed Piskor, it's basically his nom de plume, his Eminem version of himself. I'd be mad at him for the one doing that, and two, I'd believe it. But secondly, just to get into the book, so the grand design is basically like X-Men Grand Design, and it goes through the history of the Fantastic Four, which it starts from before that fateful rocket ship. In fact, it goes into their time travel stuff that they had early on, and even before that, and it also ties back goes into Galactus's birth to a point, because It looks like, we get it from a few different views. Like, it looks like it starts off from the Watcher's point of view, and then it goes into the members of the Fantastic Four. And the reason why I'm not crazy about this, and probably should have given to the Piscor if he would have wanted it, is that Scioli's writing is just kind of in on itself, slightly up his own buttocks in a point, because he tends to do these references to stuff. Like, there's specific pop culture references that he writes and draws this, by the way. If that did not make that clear, that it's like, really, why would you do that? Like, for instance, there was a panel that references Empire Strikes Back, let's just say, and also Return of the Jedi. Now that I think about it, that kind of stuff that tends to happen, and it was like. And there's also what seems to be a little bit of revisionist history on stuff, because we have the history of the Marvel Universe that's floating around. We have recent Fantastic Four, which has been touching on their origins, and this doesn't really touch on some of that, but it does, because at the end of the book there's annotations on the stuff that gets covered in this book, so that's kind of covered for a lot of this. But at the same time, some of the writing kind of is a little current, and I kind of hate it, especially when it's supposed to be of a time in some of the places. And it's just like and more referential to stuff that was like that wouldn't have even been around back then, which kind of puts me off with some of it, a lot of his stuff. Like, some of that was in GoBots, and even it wasn't as bad as this. But I'm going by this too long. If you want to, like I said, I would have rather this had been Ed Piscor doing this, because at least there would have been a little bit more. I don't know. It would have been. I would like to believe it would have been bit better, but here is what we have. If you're a fan of a Grand Fantastic Four, you may want to pick this up. But why?
Hey, I love the FF, but I had some trouble getting through the first couple of pages. So with some more time on my hands, maybe I'll give it another shot.
Yeah, see, guess what? When Dirt and I read Transformers versus G.I. Joe, it was the same thing. But then again, it was the art then for that one. And I ended up reading GoBots like earlier this year or late last year, whatever it was. And it was, I imagined to get through it, but it was still him doing this thing. And yeah, there's a thing about his works that's just kind of rubs me wrong.
Understood.
Anyway, that's that. Contagion number 5 is next. So this is the last issue of this book, and I will just say that, hey, Moon Knight's plan worked. Then they all go out for burgers, and everything gets wrapped up all nice and neat. Easy peasy. DCeased number 6, which is basically DC. Well, basically, so when this book started coming out, there was a comment that we were thinking about that they kind of started this a little early, because it is Halloween at the time that we are recording this. And it was suggested that they probably could have done it, a little more going into Halloween, but it seemed like it was perfect, because it seemed like it was perfectly planned out for it to end today, this being Halloween. So I feel like that in reading it, it worked out the way it was supposed to, and because it's been coming out monthly, and it's been hitting when it's supposed to, and here we are at the end of the thing, and it's pretty good. And I don't like too much like zombie stuff. Like, there's another Marvel Zombies book that is coming out this week, as fact, that apparently there's the Illuminati is going to get involved with, or something like that, which I didn't feel like reading, because no. But if you are a fan of, matter of fact, I believe this is Tom Taylor again. If you're a fan of his Injustice stuff, I think you will enjoy this, because there's some stuff in here that kind of seems similar to that, and something that may have come out of Batman versus Superman, let's just say, gets used in this one. But for an Elseworlds book that I would like to see where this ends up, I would like to see them kind of expand on it, because they basically end up, the Earth is done because of events that happen, and they have to go off to another planet, and they end up doing that, which is a planet that they call Earth 2, but Earth 2, as you know, as most DC fans would know, is a another multiversal Earth. But if you are of a certain vintage, you know that was a sci-fi show from NBC called Earth 2 back in the 80s. And that's where I'd take my cue from, because when it said that, I was like, oh man, this could have totally rolled right into Earth 2, the old TV show. That's just me. It doesn't necessarily read like that, but they could have done it. But I would love to see them expand on it to see what happens when they get onto this. And I won't tell you what happens in the course of this for them to get to that point. But let's just say Batman has affected stuff from beyond the grave.
Okay.
Also, Doctor Strange Annual #1. This was also another fun one from this week, appropriately timed for the holiday, because the main story is a Halloween surrounding story. Zelma comes to the Sanctum Sanctorum when because she was called there. Doctor Strange is hosting. It's not a seance, but he's basically having a thing. So because there are spirits that reside in the Sanctum Sanctorum that needs to be appeased, and just so happens that Halloween is the time that they do that, and some things end up happening in the course of the story. And you have like Scarlet Witch and Brother Voodoo and Agatha Harkness and Talisman along for it, and they all have a hand in what happens in it, and it's pretty good. And of course, full-size candy bars, folks. If you grew up doing Halloween, you know that was what a treat getting full-size candy bars would be. All I'm saying is that's a big thing. That's a small big thing that happens in this. And those snakes that Doctor Strange has are trolls, which comes into an amusing play at a park. Death's Head, also written by Tini Howard, who also wrote Death's Head #4, and also Excalibur #1. So Death's Head #4 is the end of this miniseries. And hey, we basically find things getting sort of nice and cleaned up. Like at the beginning of the issue, in the first issue, Death's Head had a bottle in his head, and that gets taken care of. A version of his old nemesis gets, let's say, repurposed and at the end of this issue, who's been pretty much fighting them the last few issues. Wiccan and Hulkling has a resolution of their own, and there's a new version of Death's Head called V that's been floating around, and whether we see that character again, who knows, but they're still floating around at the end of this. And my last book, oh no, it's not my last book. I got two more. Ironheart #11. Which, why did I not put that in there? That's crazy. Ironheart #11 finds Riri Williams still in Wakanda at this wellspring, this all-powerful wellspring. She's with Shuri, Okoye, and Silhouette from old New Warriors fame. Which also Midnight Fire, her brother, also shows up because he's shown up in the book in the past, and he has a hand of what's been going on the other side of this. Come to find out, basically, those Riri Williams' dad is still alive, and not on the side of angels, let's just say. Which, as I say in my notes, puts Ironheart, Riri Williams, in the status of possibly becoming a runaway.
Hold on.
So, and I mean the group Runaways, if that means anything to you, then you kind of understand where it's coming from. It's a good issue to read. There's a team up with, like I said, the four ladies that I mentioned privately, and I would love to see a book with all of them as a team. It's I can see it happening. So check this book out. Ironheart needs more readers. It's a pretty good read. Oh, Riri's dad, if you see him, especially the way he's drawn in this issue, he has some very striking features.
Okay, I'm gonna flip to it.
Because let's put it this way, if you've seen Riri Williams, basically a male version of that, but the way they draw him in this book is just stands out. It's like, wow, okay. Clearly that yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
Like it is very striking. I'm like, all right, that's just put it out there. But again, good read. You should check it out. Check out Ironheart because it's a pretty good book. Last but not least, Transformers Galaxy's Constructicons #2. So the Constructicons are still on this moon, and they're kind of having a bit trash, let's just say, because they want to get back to Cybertron, but they have this project they have to do. But also they are being primed to join a certain other group against that they are more classically associated with, because the Insecticons are there and maybe mounting a recruiting drive, let's just say. And again, this seems to be back when they first this seems to be set like first or right after they learned how to combine. So there is that. It's a interesting book, I guess. And that, folks, is that. Now we can go to Clicks of the Week. Sure. We have one click for one of our partners, and that is Venom #19 from Tim.
Venom.
Yeah, I know he's been on the Venom train, and I'm not sure why, but that's him. And he didn't really say anything else about it, so so that's pretty much that. And Dirk didn't have one, but I'm gonna go ahead and say for him, what if the complete collection volume 2, which also came out this week.
There you go. Yes, I was going to just add, bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that this is a 5th week of comic book publishing. So we had a lot of annuals, especially from DC, and some from Marvel that we spoke about, but especially from DC that we did not partake of. So it's a little on the lighter side for reading material this week.
Some, yeah. That's usually, yeah, like we said last week, they should usually when they kind of just throw out whatever else books that then, like it just only said, also a lot of annuals and other books that they didn't get to during the course of the month. Which a lot of times there's some annuals or not. But no, it was actually still, I think it was still a good, depending on what you're looking for.
Right. Well, it depends on what your pull list or what your preference is.
Yes.
I'm going to go with Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man #13.
Yep. I also, which I said, I pretty much said that when we talked earlier before the show.
Gotcha.
But yes, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man was definitely a great read. Like I said, there's Ironheart was good. That was also a potential clicker of the week for me, for the team up aspect, and Invisible Woman. There was some good stuff this week, but definitely Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
They're wrapping Ironheart with 12, right?
Probably. I hadn't heard. I hadn't heard one way or the other, honestly, but I wouldn't be surprised at this point, which is sad.
Right. Definitely sad, but it's nice that they got a full 12 issues out of it, so they could.
I mean, they've been making 12, but I mean, they've been getting to 12 for a lot of them, unless it's just it's not Black Panther and the Crew.
Oh no!
Yes, I'm gonna continue to bring that up. But it's sad that if that is the case, it's sad because this book, they say whatever about low sales and not being marketed correctly, but sometimes a lot of times they don't go out of their way to do said marketing and putting the word out. And yes, it's up to us to do that in kind.
But I would also note that they're probably going to use the Iron Man 2020 what I've read is they're going to launch a new volume out of that event.
And there's that kind of stuff happened, but that kind of still sucks. But
right.
Especially because there's been a lot of that in the last few years, and that's why, which puts some people off of comics because what do I jump on? Do I jump on here? Do I do And if you're not keeping up on some of this stuff, like we do a lot of times, or have the means to, I can understand people getting lost in that.
Definitely.
I mean, I don't like it because
it causes a disjointed reading experience. But we're coming at it from a different perspective. We're coming at it from the weekly perspective. Some people come at it from the monthly or the trade waiters. So
yeah, but still, it is still regardless, still understood regardless, because it's not a thing that should continue to happen. But new number one sale, unfortunately, and events happen, and
It happens with virtually every title now. We can't even say that it's just some of the smaller titles.
right. So like stuff gets killed and then brought back, or killed and not brought back, or any number of things happens in the cycle, and it's a sad thing that shit happened. And it used to not happen as much,
right? Like in recent news, see X-Men, right?
Yeah, basically.
All right. So before we move on to the news, we'll get our first ad read in for the night, despite Roddykat's objections. Our first ad read of the night is for Busted Tees. This episode of the Comic Book Chronicles is sponsored by Busted Tees, your home for funny, awesome, cool t-shirts that are sure to get your friends' attention. Busted Tees puts many of their popular shirt designs on sale each week. Choose from several eye-catching t-shirts inspired by pop culture, cleverly themed t-shirts inspired by movies, video games, TV shows, comic books, and geek culture, and much more are all on sale. To help keep our podcasts free, order from Busted Tees by going to cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts free link. Click on the Busted Tees banner, and then shop for awesome t-shirts. Busted Tees through cspn.us. Do it today. Now we move into the news.
That's cute. He acts like my objections matter. All right, now we get into the cinematic news. Starting off with, wait, hold on. Did I actually finish this? Do this every frequent, not every week, but yep, I didn't finish. So bear with me for a second. Where was I? You know what? I'm going to do this. There. While I finish this up, sorry. Because we were talking before the show, a little behind the scenes, and I usually would have finished doing the links. I should probably cut this out of the show. Thank you.
What's that?
I said I could probably cut this out of the show, but I probably won't because I'm lazy.
It's not taking too long. It's all
still in the video, so it doesn't matter. So if you do love us enough to watch the video, thank you for being here. We appreciate you. I was going to ask you a question, but since I'm almost finished,
it's all good.
And there we go. And now, cinematic news, like should have been happening. Captain America explained why he chose Falcon before he time traveled. I don't know where. So apparently there's an explanation according to this article as to why he chose Sam. Like I am of the mind of like, does it need to be explained? But hey, articles are what it is, and you got to have content. So
I was about to say it's somebody that's digging for content.
Yeah, basically. So, and there's been a lot of that, especially within the last month or two. Well, specifically, it has been last month or two, even around the cons, because it's like, wow, there's some articles that come out like this must be a slow news days. But regardless, if you care, there's one person's explanation as to why. Next.
All right. New Eternals set photos reveal mysterious Marvel location. So filming for the Eternals is underway as construction on a massive set piece in the Canary Islands continues. It appears to be the same location as the Babylon set previously revealed last month. It kind of appears to be a clay home of sorts, so it's probably whatever home base the Eternals have. I forget the name of it.
Yeah, I don't know, and I'm sure there's probably going to be a bunch of CG around it anyway, so it doesn't at this point. It is what it is. Adobe. I just wanted to say that.
Right.
Marvel Hawkeye show will reveal Clint Barton's backstory. If you have been keeping up with the news, you will also know that Jeremy Renner, the actor that plays Hawkeye, has been having some issues lately, or has had an issue lately, I'll say. So, I don't know if this is still going to be up in the air, or if this, at the time of this article, it's a thing. If you know Hawkeye's backstory, well, let's put it this way: if you know Hawkeye's comic book origin story, that'll be interesting if they will indeed go that far back and do that, because as you know, he started out as basically a villain for an Iron Man villain of sorts with like Black Widow. Doubt they'll do that, but it'll probably just go back to his old Shield days or something,
Although I wouldn't be surprised if they did a little bit of the Carnival stuff.
Well, yeah, maybe they'll even introduce the Carnival crime or something.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Maybe that could happen. It could happen. So, regardless, stay tuned for that.
Next up, Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus series was supposed to be one movie, confirmed by Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, I feel like this article has a similar article has come out before. Like, we do know that they are filming, just like the Marvel stuff. They are filming the Disney Plus shows in a movie format,
right? And I think we even joked about it over in previous episodes, where this format of 6-hour-long episodes basically breaks down into 3 movies,
right? And plus, this Obi-Wan movie specifically was supposed to be a movie before they decided to go this route. So,
right. And they're actually giving it its full trilogy.
Right. And so technically this is actually sort of happening in a roundabout way.
Right.
So cool. Rogue One writer Tony Gilroy joins Cassian Andor Star Wars series at Disney Plus. This is kind of it's not old, but I meant to put this in last week and I didn't. It is what it is. So yeah, that the Cassian Andor show is still coming, and now they have a writer. So yeah, there you go. Next.
All right. So recently, the Mandalorian trailer dropped, and 5 Mandalorian character posters were also dropped. So there is the titular Mandalorian character played by Pedro Pascal, ex-Rebel shock trooper Cara Dune, played by Gina Carano, bounty hunter Guildhead Grief Karga, played by Carl Weathers, Apollo.
Yep.
IG series bounty hunter droid IG-11, voiced by Taika Waititi,
who basically looks like IG-88. So if you know that
right.
character,
Right. And the final character poster introduces an unidentified Ugnaught.
Yes, I'm not sure who in the world that's supposed to be, but I guess we'll find out when that happens. Hey, guess what, folks? We're only a couple of weeks away from Disney Plus going live.
It is very, very near.
And also this show coming out, because it also starts the same day as Disney Plus, which is November 12th. So
righto,
stay tuned for that. Cool. So yeah, if did you watch the trailer?
I did.
What'd you think?
It's interesting. I mean, they're only going to give away so much.
True, but yeah, because I mean, there's still a lot that are not necessarily known about it. Like, we kind of get an idea of the setting and whatnot, but it's like, there's still a good bit not to know. So, Star Wars trilogy from Game of Thrones creators canceled, and I say yay.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So yes, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss were set to write and produce the trilogy of films, which had a release date of 2022, but they killed it for some odd reason. I don't really care. It's good that they did, because I can't. This is not the only news surrounding. Speaking of, I think them, but Game of Thrones that we'll talk about later on. Next up,
In only slightly related news, apparently based off of reports from the Benioff and Weiss departure, um, it's not a big surprise, but it was revealed that filmmakers who work on the Star Wars franchise do not have a lot of creative freedom. They basically are under the
Star Wars story.
purview of Kathleen Kennedy and her team. This
Right.
is what happened with Solo.
Well, yeah. See, those basically everything has to go through. Even the comics have to go through the story group. Also, you can see if you look at the credits for comic book, you will see some folks on the story group, or the shows that they have.
Right.
Everything runs through the story group, and so they have final say about what gets. Which what I don't see where there's a big of a problem with this, because think about it, sometimes you give, as we have seen in the past, you give you basically license stuff out to folks and they take it where they want to take it, and sometimes that's not always good.
Right.
But some would argue that, hey, them having this much control over thing is kind of stifling to the creative process. I don't know, whatever. It is what it is on that. That's like saying, hey, you can't be funny without cursing or putting somebody down, which that's not always true either. It's not the same situation, but that's where I'm taking it. So regardless of whether this report is true and they're not given a whole lot of creative control, okay, sure. Even if if it's your own project, sure, that's one thing. But if you're doing a project for someone else and they have an idea about what they want to do, of course, it's not going to fall into. They're not just going to let you do just any old thing. So, anyway, excuse me. Star Wars Solo writer blames Disney for box office failure. This is also somewhat related to that last article. So this is Lawrence Kasdan of Empire Strikes Back fame, also, who basically complained that it's Disney's fault. Excuse me. Hold on, where does it say that? It doesn't matter. Oh, so basically, Kasdan was saying that the most. I think some of this is some editorializing on the article writer's part. But Solo's lackluster showing was seen by some as proof audiences were tiring of Star Wars and franchise fatigue was setting in. I've heard some of those complaints. That could be true, but there are also a lot of Star Wars fans who nope, just give me anything. I don't care. So you have to take it for what it is on that one. I don't want to say true Star Wars fans, because that term is kind of terrible nowadays. What's a true fan? They say a true fan or a true this and that is whatever. But no, some of the more ardent fans were no, just give me more Star Wars. I don't care what it is. Now the people who don't like the stuff like this, this is not for them. Those movies were not for them, and some would argue those people are not. Some would say that those are not really Star Wars fans.
I would just say that Solo isn't as bad as you remember it.
Exactly, it was a terrible movie.
I watched it on home release, so I definitely didn't contribute to the box office, but come on, not every Star Wars, the thing is, you're dealing with what's become a franchise that is going to have a couple of bumps in the road every once in a while.
Yeah, and even if that's the case, like I said, hey, some would argue, Solo was an unnecessary movie. Sure, you can make that claim, but at the same time, there are also those some people are like, well, we don't need to know the backstory on this stuff because we got everything we need. No, we don't. There is some stuff that hasn't been told. Now the problem is where we are now. The way that stuff may end up getting told, if they do, has a lens of current, the current way things are being told and the things around it, which that might be a problem,
right?
especially given with all we know about the franchise now and what people tend to do
Right.
to make it quote unquote modern and current.
And besides, you know, every time you ask for, every time you think you want something from the past, you get the younglings, and you get the women and the children too. So, yeah. So anyway, moving on.
So that's just gonna be a thing. I mean, who's to say? Never, you know. Next
up, Stumptown on ABC has gotten a full season order. This is a series based on the comic book of the same name by Greg Rucka, Matthew Southworth, and Justin Greenwood. It's gotten a full season order from ABC. It stars Maria Hill.
I mean, well, it's basically Maria Hill playing Jessica Jones, but without the powers.
There you go.
That's because I watched that first episode and I'm like, okay, this is all right, but she's basically playing Jessica Jones in, I guess, Portland. I don't know. Weird. I don't know. It's not bad. I'm like, go ahead, Colby. And which, hey, Colby Smulders is the producer on the show, so you know, get that money, girl. Next up, Morbius, major Spider-Man character, rumored to make a cameo appearance. So I believe that this is a rumor. So just take that for what it is.
I heard a rumor. I gotta clip that too.
So some rumor site, according to some sources, saying that J.K. Simmons will appear in the Morbius movie, which apparently they're still doing.
I believe so.
So J.K. Simmons, you know, playing J. Jonah Jameson, and may end up showing up in that movie. This is one of those movies like Venom that I believe shouldn't be, like some people would say about Solo, doesn't need to happen. Just totally my opinion. I could be wrong about it. I don't believe I am.
But you know, when you're
plus, if I'm not mistaken, this is also another movie like Venom with no actual Spider-Man ties.
Right. I was gonna say, when you're mining IP, you know, sometimes you got to dig deep.
Yeah, but but they're mining something that already have connection to something that's been making them money.
Right.
That would have totally used, but they choose to like, no, we're just gonna we'll use the property, but we're just not gonna tie it to the thing that's originally tied to. It makes no sense at all.
Right. All right. Up next, some Crisis, some set photos behind the scenes on the Crisis crossover on the CW. May have confirmed a popular fan theory that John Spartan Diggle will become a Green Lantern before the end of Arrow season 8. It shows him in a green suit.
Which, okay, that's not really. See, they've been doing stuff like this since Arrow beginning. Like I remember one particular scene in probably like season 1, maybe season 2, something like that, where they had Diggle under a green light in a club. And people were like, "Oh, are they foreshadowing maybe Green Lantern at some point?" I don't know. But being that they're having this crossover event, they could do it specifically because it's a multiversal thing. So they could totally do it one way or the other. I guess. So sure. I mean, would I want to see it? Sure, I wouldn't mind. That is actually pretty good. So who knows? Next up, Flash Theory, how Nora West Allen set up Crisis on Infinite Earth. So I'm behind on all of these Arrowverse shows, and I know that
I don't watch it.
Well, I mean, I have been watching. I'm just like a couple of seasons behind, so you know,
couple of seasons.
Yeah, I'm trying. I say that because I'm actually starting to catch. Trying to catch up, but
okay.
But at a certain point, when the crossover happens, you kind of want to stop. That's just me. Again, that kind of goes the same with the comic books events. Like if you caught up on something, but an event happens to get in the way, and you may or may not want to read around it. But that verse, I've been writing, checking out all of them. So it is what it is. But regardless, her coming on the show in last season apparently may have also set up this upcoming Crisis that is about to happen, crossover that happens next month, I believe. So yeah, and apparently there's a theory that her coming on when she did and being there and something she did may have been another setup to it. which it's all connected always with those Arrowverse shows, so wouldn't be surprised. Next.
Alrighty, Ray Palmer, the Atom actor Brandon Routh, previously announced his departure from the DC's Legends of Tomorrow show back in August, and he's now had his last day on set, which prompted him to share a series of photos alongside a heartfelt post, and there's some reaction to that from his co-stars.
Yeah. So yeah. All right, the puppet from that. Wait. Oh, right. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, if you're watching the video, you can see I'm clicking through his Instagram thing with the pictures. So yeah, his last time on the show. I guess will probably be around the I guess would be in the crossover. I'm not sure because whatever he filmed seems to be from that. CW orders 9 more Batwoman episodes for season 1. So not really sure how many shows they had. Reported first by Deadline. This comes after just 3 episodes have been aired. Seems like the CW like what they see from the ratings, which I've heard decent things from the ratings. But how many shows did they have? Oh wait, bringing its first season up to 22 episodes, which a season nowadays is usually like 13, depending on what it is. So that's interesting. So the fact that it's getting 22 out of a possible 26 that we used to get consistently, I guess that's saying something for the show. Next up.
Spoiler alert. Supergirl is saying goodbye to a major character. So it's become official. Mikad?
Yeah.
Mikad Brooks's James Olsen has left Supergirl. So in the latest episode, he has said peace.
Yeah, this is which, given the reason that he left, seems or at least given that the reason why they said it here seems a little whatever. But okay, I guess at least they didn't kill him off. So and I guess since and this is me being silly, but I guess since now he has a maxi series book where he's his original white, they can't have that and this black dude running around as Jimmy Olsen anymore. So they got rid of him. That's not true, but who knows why he's leaving? But honestly, I'm kind of surprised he's been there this long. To be honest, like they've used him a good bit. Like he's even become Guardian at some point. Like I think that's probably where I am.
Okay,
where I left off with it. So they've used him a good bit, but I guess it was only a matter of time for them to get rid of that character off the show. Young Justice villain coming to CW Supergirl, according to a report. So apparently, a Nick Sagar has been cast as the villain Rip Roar for the 5th season of CW Supergirl, according to TV Line.
Who?
Yeah, I don't know. Sagar himself confirmed a role on Supergirl, but didn't confirm who he'd be playing. And apparently, that episode that he'll be on is coming up soon, because this was dated today at the time of this recording.
Cool.
Yeah. Next
up, in slightly shocking news, I guess to me, I'm not up on my CW, despite the fact that we go over the news every week. It's only because I always thought this was never going to occur on the CW Arrowverse shows, but apparently, say that again.
I said, fooled you.
Yeah, and a lot of people.
Because,
the CW seems to be developing a series with Tyler Hoechlin and Elizabeth Tulloch in the title roles of Superman and Lois. Shout out to Terry Hatcher and what's his name?
Yeah, whose name we don't
exactly. Like I said, what's his name?
Yeah. So the reason why it's a surprise is because and we've mentioned this last week. Well, at least to me, I don't know if it's the same for you. They specifically said that they were not going to use the big names on these Arrowverse shows.
That's exactly right.
like Batman wasn't going to show up, but that's not the case because Batwoman is a thing, and they've alluded to Batman and even his showing up during or supposedly a version of Batman is and Robin is showing up on the thing. Superman, same deal with Supergirl. Superman showing up, which this good tonight. So
I was about to say it's probably a byproduct of the fate of their movie production. So they've probably opened it up a little bit on the TV side.
Yeah, maybe. But sadly, these people are still not going to be in the next movies, though. What they may be.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So knowing that they've opened the floodgates on that stuff is not that big of a surprise, but it is a big of a surprise given what they've said in the past about this stuff. Joker movie Joker proves that Rotten Tomatoes is biased toward mediocre movies. That is the editorializing for. Wait, this is not that Stephen Colbert. I'm going to assume. Who is the writer of this article? But I will go on to say is that Rotten Tomatoes is terrible on many accounts, not by their own thing because it can be gamified and as
right, because they're an aggregator and that's what allows it to be gamed.
But this article kind of goes into why why this author feels the way they do about Rotten Tomatoes, which there are some points in here. Yeah, I because I guess the long and short of it is basically like, because of the way Rotten Tomatoes aggregates, it doesn't necessarily go by actual. Well, I mean, there are actual critical reviews that are put on the site, but they kind of get tamped down because of XYZ reasons, and therefore kind of gets meaningless.
Yep. All right.
Next
up, the Batman, Matt Reeves has confirmed Jeffrey Wright is going to be playing Commissioner Gordon. Okay.
Cool. Hey, he's a great actor, so good on him. That's really nothing else that need to be said. That Batman movie's still happening. If you don't know Jeffrey Wright, hey, he's been in Westworld and a bunch of other stuff. Next up, HBO Max will be free for HBO subscribers and AT&T customers.
Yay!
So yeah, yay if you're one of those folk.
I was like, hey, that's one less stupid streaming app, and I still have access to the West Wing.
Right. So the clarification on this is that the service will be provided free of charge to AT&T customers subscribing to the carrier's wireless phone service.
Right.
As well as the DirecTV subscribers. I'm assuming Uverse is in there somewhere. I don't know. It doesn't necessarily say. And I say that for personal reasons, but I would also assume that you would have to be subscribed to HBO, as this says, in order to get that benefit outside of those reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean outside of AT&T.
Yeah. I was going to say it's basically a jacked up. It's basically a roided up version of HBO Go.
Basically, which that's the weird thing because there's HBO Go, there's HBO Now, which I think I saw an article saying that's probably going to get folded into this.
Right. They're probably right. That exactly. That's the one. It's the Now is the one for non-subscribers.
Right. Well, so it's in HBO Go technically because you can get HBO Go with a subscription, but you don't also have to because you can get it on a monthly thing by itself.
Right. No, I mean I'm talking about with the cable subscription.
Right.
So, right. The now it makes sense for Now to get folded into Max, and and obviously Max is going to envelop Go as well now.
I would think so, yeah. So it says here the cost of service for non-AT&T customers has yet to be announced. So, but that's going to happen closer to next year when this comes out.
Yep.
Green Lantern, Strange Adventures, DC Superhero High getting HBO Max series. Weird thing about this, it says nothing about DC Universe, the streaming service that they have for such things, which also has been coming into question as to whether that's going to be around. You won't be around next year.
But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. But according to a variety, Strange Adventures has been in development at the DC Universe streaming service before being moved to HBO Max. So that's what this article says. But Strange Adventures is it says here, a DC superhero anthology that will feature characters from across the DC canon. The 1 hour drama will explore close-ended stories about the intersecting lives of ordinary humans and superheroes. And of course, hey, Green Lantern is whatever it is going to be. It's a Green Lantern show. Who knows? But the Superhero High, it sounds like it's a show based off of those not only the comics but the shorts that that DC's been putting out on YouTube. As it sounds like, Elizabeth Banks is executive producing the half-hour comedy.
Yep.
Of that. So cool.
Yeah, I'm like, didn't they do a Superhero High type movie with like Kurt Russell like some years back?
Oh no. Well, yes, they did,
but
but
obviously this
not
is
DC related. Yeah,
back.
that was a Disney property.
So
it was called Superhero High, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah.
Goodness gracious. All right. Next up, apparently we've all heard a rumor that Warner Brothers is developing a Starfire origin movie for I don't know if it's for the big screen or if it's for streaming, but
because it says here for DCEU, which almost makes me say DC Universe, but it says DCEU, which makes me think
theater
movie,
right?
But
there's
definitely they would do a DC Universe just because Starfire is on Titans, which is on DC Universe. I doubt they would make a big budget movie,
right? But there's definitely plenty of source material to mine because the article, I guess, goes on to note plenty of Starfire's origin points, points in her story. Those were all based in the original Titans, New Teen Titans run when the character was introduced.
And hopefully they use Anna Diop, who is gorgeous. Next up, Watchmen's latest twist shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. I am not been watching this show.
It's not bad.
But it's been this has been setting Twitter ablaze the last couple of weeks.
It's not bad. It's pretty good because it's going in a new direction, and that's what's fun.
Right. And so I am not entirely sure about what this twist is, but basically something happens, and especially given what I've heard about the first episode, is the things that they bring up. Yeah, it's probably not a surprise.
Yep.
So good on it. Maybe one of these days I'll check it out and actually possibly read the source material.
Well, you at least have a copy of it now.
Yes.
So I was about to say you are one less excuse down. So in very recent news, Game of Thrones prequel that was initially that was supposed to be led by Naomi Watts has been declined to be picked up by HBO.
In fact, you could take the next one because shortly
in related news, HBO did in fact order a Game of Thrones spin-off centered around House Targaryen, telling their backstory before 300 years before the Game of Thrones television series. So it's like
yeah, but so it's like the Old Republic, but for which I think that the showrunners who supposedly had the trilogy, I believe they were reportedly going to do an Old Republic Star Wars trilogy. Thankfully, they're not going to get to do, and this one is kind of like this, but for Game of Thrones.
Okay,
sort of, except for not as long in the past. Lucifer final season, big announcement teased by superfan Kelly Clarkson. So apparently Kelly Clarkson loves her some Lucifer, that Fox show that is based off of the comic book. I've never watched the show, don't care to.
Got me.
Yeah, and I guess that the show, that's right, because the show had been moved to Netflix this past season because it got off of Fox. And Kelly Clarkson has her own show now. So I don't know what's wrong with people nowadays. But anyway, Netflix revealed a visit by Clarkson to the set of Lucifer, writing she not only brought the show cameras to set up for an episode airing on October 20th, but she also be dropping some news about season 5. So, you know, gotta get that that marketing money out the way. No further details has been teased about the announcement have been revealed. So, okay. Next.
Okay. Some spoilers for the current Walking Dead television series. Apparently something's going on with Ezekiel, and Michonne has discovered it. So that is that.
Yes, and if you're watching the video, a event happens in between those two, which okay.
Mm-hmm.
Lucky man. Close with Star Trek Picard's newest uniform. So apparently, yeah, we get a shot of what Patrick Stewart's Picard will be wearing on the show. Assuming he's going to be wearing it because he's not in Starfleet anymore, so I guess he's going to get back in uniform. But regardless of whether that's the case or not, it looks like the Starfleet uniform of the time that the show will be set in
the future. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So cool. I mean, you know, it's not a bad design. It is what it is. Next up.
All right. Minor spoilers for the upcoming James Bond movie, No Time to Die. And the villain name, the spoiler is that the villain's supervillain is Safin or Safin. I'm not sure what the pronunciation is, but that's the name of the new supervillain.
Sure. Played by Rami Malek of Mr. Robot fame, I guess. So
right.
No time to die, Dr. Bond, Mr. Bond. I'm sure they'll throw that in there someplace because they can't help themselves. If not, then you're welcome. Warren Ellis writing Ramayana inspired cartoon for Netflix. So this is a Ramayana. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I apologize if not. An animated series written by writer Warren Ellis have been picked up by Netflix. First reported by Deadline, Heaven's Forest will reunite Ellis with his Castlevania collaborators, producers Adi Shankar and Kevin Cold, which sounds like Captain Cole's brother, and animation studio Powerhouse Animation, who I believe also did that Castlevania one. So good stuff. It says Heaven's Forest is set in an Indo-futuristic world with storyline and characters inspired by the Indian mythology of the Ramayana. Reads Deadline's description for the series. And Warren Ellis says he's delighted to be partnering again with Netflix, my Castlevania comrades, and the Indian creative community to create the surreal, mythic narrative filled with life and heart. So it says there, the Ramayana is one of the pillars of Indian literature and centers on Prince Rama, a major deity in Hinduism. So cool. No release date has been set for it, but look out for it.
Okay. Guillaume Canet and Gilles Lelouch have been cast. That's my high school French coming in handy.
I know, right?
Have been cast as the titular leads in the upcoming live-action Asterix and Obelix: The Silk Road big screen adaptation, as reported by Deadline.
Or for us Americans, Asterisk and Obelix.
Canet will perform double duty, also serving as director.
Yeah, so cool. Some obscure. Well,
it's not really.
I know it's
funny. It's actually popular in France.
It's actually it's kind of sort of popular here, which is why they're bringing it over. Well, I assume they're bringing it over,
right?
But yeah, I mean, it's if anything else, it is definitely known here. Let's put it that way.
Definitely.
Last up in the cinematic news, everything you need to know about the Terminator universe before Dark Fate.
Isn't that out this weekend?
Sure. I don't know.
Because I know they're doing the media blitz, so it's got to be out this weekend or next week.
They've been doing a media blitz for a minute now, but yes, we'll find out. Oh yeah, so November 1st. So technically, I guess it started tonight.
Right.
If I'm going to paraphrase this article, and this is before I even read half, because I read a part of it, I'm just going to say, and I believe Cameron has said the same thing. You can skip everything after 2, because that's all. Because 1 and 2 are the only one that matters.
The only ones that count to him.
Yeah, and to a lot of fans, to be honest, because let's face it, some people like Salvation, which I didn't think it was that bad, but it's and Salvation itself was supposed to be overwriting 3, which was terrible, supposedly. So it is what it is. I still kind of would have watched. I think I did watch a little bit of 3, and I have watched Salvation, but I kind of almost feel compelled to watch all of those movies over again before going to this at some point in time, which won't be anytime soon.
Never watched them.
What? Any of them?
Nope. Only 1 and 2.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like any of them.
No, any of the films after 1 and 2. So
some would argue you're not missing much, but yeah.
Right. What I was gonna add is it wasn't because I chose to forget them. I was just like, it's okay.
Yeah, I get that, because I think the only reason why I ended up watching Salvation is because once again I was stuck in a hotel somewhere and it was on.
Right.
And 3 probably was the same way, but I just missed most of it. So
Next up,
we're gonna get around to it.
we're transitioning to the comic news.
Yes, we are.
Transition. Let's find the good transition. All right.
Y'all ready for this?
Spider-Man Noir returns for a Spider-Verse spin-off comic book series. So Spider-Man Noir is going to return in a 5-issue limited series by Margaret Stoll and Juan Ferreira in March of 2020.
We don't choose where to dance, just to where to run. I forgot the line already. Into the Spider-Verse. But hey, Cage is, Cage doing Cage. So yeah, I guess that's gonna be a thing. It says, I think you already said this, but the series will follow the adventures of the title character shortly after his revival in February's Spider-Verse number 5. Which, spoiler, I guess?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, wait a minute.
Kind of a spoiler.
Yeah, but okay. Which, now that I think about it, I should really catch up on the Spider stuff. Like, I still have yet to finish the Spider-Verse, and that last one I obviously didn't read. But, one of these days, hopefully I'll be caught up. Next up, Marvel's Illuminati reunite to investigate a major cosmic villain's death. Shout out to Tim, our very own Tim, for writing this. And this is from that Marvel's, I think we alluded to this earlier, but this is from that Marvel Zombies Resurrection book that came out this week. Which is the only reason why I wanted to read it, because I saw this article and noticed they were going to be involved, but I still didn't read it because I dread reading a zombie book, even though I read basically 2 this week.
Okay.
So so apparently they get involved, the Illuminati get involved because whatever happens in the course of this book, and sounds like it's a cosmic villain. So maybe this is also going to play into something coming up with that other event, or maybe not. Who even knows at this point? Excalibur writer explains why Apocalypse joined the X-Men. So that would be Tenny Howard, who wrote the book. She says he's always been concerned with the ascension of mutants, and it's not that he feels as though his work is done now. It's quite the contrary. It's that his work must change, explains Howard in an interview with Entertainment Weekly. He was a general when he had to be general, and now as the fight has changed, his tactics have changed, and we're going to see an Apocalypse who's a scholar and someone who's able to work for the greatness of mutant kind as a thinker, as an artist, as a priest. We'll see him in these roles we've never seen him before, because we're most notably seeing him for trying to take over the world and fighting X-Men. So,
alrighty.
Yeah, weird.
Next up, Marvel has provided a sneak peek to Wolverine #1, which is going to be written by Ben Percy and drawn by Adam Kubert and Victor Bogdanovich.
Mhm.
It's the first in the Wave 2 Dawn of X titles. And basically, this first look shows Wolverine interacting with Jean Grey and also shows him interacting with Kitty Pryde.
Right, which assuming this is coming off of Marauders, I assume that part.
Yes.
That's an assumption that sure that's not a hard one to make, but hey. And I think the article just said something about that. But Tim had said something over on Twitter in relation to something out of Marauders. And I was kind of going a different way with how that, but apparently he has read some of those, like you have read. I think you did, but some of those. There's something that may or may not have something to do with one of those Wolverine miniseries from last year or whatever that might have something to do with Marauders and a certain person's status.
Right.
So I don't know if that's the case. I prefer to think that she's being messed with, but who knows? Let's see. Next up, Deadman Logan's finale assembles a new Avengers team. This was also written by Tim. I did not know this at the time, so don't think I'm just being. Don't think I'm pulling this out just because he wrote it. So apparently, actually, this week's Deadman Logan, which is the finale of the issue. Something we talked about last week comes into play, and that is the Avengers of the Wasteland, which apparently get previewed in this book, which is, as we said, Danielle Cage's Thor and whoever else is there from the Old Man universe. Now, how did Old Man Logan get there? We don't even, because it doesn't. A lot of things about Wolverine doesn't make any sense at this point, and that's one of them. I know this is Deadman Logan is not, is a different dimension that just happened to come in the Prime universe.
Right.
But
thanks to Secret Wars.
Right, exactly. Which also gave me the questions like, wait, so when they're resurrecting mutants, will he be one of them, or would they just kind of skip him because the regular Wolverine is around?
I think that's up to the prerogative of the writers.
Yeah, which I think they're just probably going to skip those. Like, we got one Wolverine and his offshoots, so this one couldn't.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Speaking of the X-Men, Jonathan Hickman and Russell Dauterman are resurrecting the title Giant Size X-Men as a new ongoing series. The premise for the series is to pair Hickman with a different superstar artist to craft a tale focusing on specific members of the X-Men.
I do love this related story because I wondered that same self question. If you're watching the video, you know what that article is. We won't go into that. So yeah, apparently it says, do we know when this is going to start? So yeah, Giant Size X-Men was basically the annual back in the day for many Marvel books before they went to using annual as the big books of the year. But apparently they're, like I said, bringing this back out. No word on length of pages and that kind of stuff, but we'll find out closer to February or when this list comes out in a couple of weeks.
Right, it was just announced. So
yeah. So I guess cool. Next up, Becky Cloonan returns to the world of Conan with Marvel's Dark Agnes. So this was an announcement at MCN Comic-Con London.
Which actually had a number of announcements coming out of it. It's
apparently
Comic-Con that it's obviously not on our radar because it's in London, but they've had a couple of things come out of there, including Marvel Legends announcements. So
right,
that's pretty cool.
Which I think they've made the point to do that on occasion. Like, yeah, everything doesn't have to come out, especially if it's something that they might not have been ready for, like either of the Comic-Cons here, the big Comic-Cons here,
right?
But they definitely make sure they have news that come out in different places. So, But yeah, that's going to be a thing. It's going to be a 5-issue written by Becky Cloonan and Luca Pizzari. So cool. They're continuing to use that Conan license. Next.
Alrighty. So apparently there is a new, there's an upcoming novel in the Star Wars universe. It's called Resistance Reborn, and apparently it's going to feature the return of Wedge Antilles.
Mm-hmm.
So fans of Captain Antilles or General Antilles, I don't remember what his latest rank was the last time we saw him.
Yeah, it was good. Well, yeah, I guess so at this point, because it just seems to be taking place around the current trilogy's timeline, which would be the original trilogy.
Right.
So yeah, hey, folks of love with reading Star Wars novels, go for it.
And also remember that 3PO and R2, I think, were both property of Wedge until they went into episode 4.
Right, except for when they did that Droids cartoon. I don't believe that was Wedge that they named as the captain. And I say that for the one or two people who of a certain vintage who remembers that cartoon. So I love that cartoon. It was good. Had a nice, had a great theme song too. Anywho, so yeah, there's a new novel. It's coming out November 5th. And I'm pretty sure the one or two Ridley folks that love Star Wars stuff will be on top of that. So stay tuned to Twitter. Joe Quesada honored by Society of Illustrators with NYC exhibit. Now this is kind of an older story, but it's still relevant because the showcase, while it opened up October 15th, the exhibit is scheduled to run from the 15th to November 23rd, with a ticketed an evening with Joe Quesada scheduled to take place November 5th.
That's cool.
Yeah, so if you're up in that area,
it's open now.
Yeah, Society of Illustrators. I don't know where that is, but up that way. But hey, if you know where that is and you're in the area, go check that out. Oh wait, it says over right here, 128 East 63rd Street in NYC.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's on the east side. So I know I missed out on the Simonson exhibit that they had some months back. So, but I've seen so much of his art. But I'm not as familiar with Quesada's art, so it might be worth a visit.
Yeah, well, if you go check it out,
I think it's free. I want to say it's free on Sundays, but I'm not 100% sure.
Right? Yeah, it only says here there's only one ticketed event on the 5th, so I assume that is the case.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Next up.
Apparently, Marvel is jumping into Warhammer because Marvel Crisis Protocol is the highly anticipated miniature skirmish game by Atomic Mass Games. And if you thought this was HeroClix, you thought wrong because you have to build your miniatures.
I was going to
paint
that. Yes. So yes, both of those what you said is correct. That's kind of funny.
So you got to be there's a little bit of an overhead involved here if you want to get involved, but if you are not daunted by the prospect of building and painting, then have at it.
So same people like like you said, the Warhammer people and the Gundam folks who just are into that stuff, and more power to them.
Hey, I know several people who have done various versions of Warhammer and miniature painting related to D&D games.
Oh, totally.
I've dabbled in it. I don't know if I want to throw myself at this Marvel game, but they definitely know how to strike at a man's potential to be obsessed. So
right. So this game comes out next week. No, not next week. I'm sorry. November 15th, not next week. So go to your local game store and go check it out if you're so inclined.
That's comedy.
Yeah. Dang it, you lucky I didn't have that. I totally have that, but I don't have it set up.
What's that?
Now that's comedy.
Oh yeah, I got it.
I mean, I got it, but it's
Okay.
one of the ones that, but I didn't have it on my board. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Latest,
That's comedy.
there you go. Latest Marvel's Avengers trailer shows how gameplay works. So this is for the video game that is coming next year. As I've been telling folks, I don't care to see much more gameplay, although I really have been shying away from a lot of it. I just want to see the game come out because it's still early enough to where they could make some changes, but it's not that early enough to where some of the stuff is going to be set in stone. So I may actually watch this, and it shows off some Kamala gameplay if I'm not mistaken. So always good to check that out if you're so inclined. I just want the game. That's it.
Okay. Next up, DC Legends adds Ravager and Connor Kent, revamps Beast Boy and Red Hood. So
this is the basically the DC version of Contest of Champions.
Okay.
Or Marvel Strike Force, if you will. Video game, mobile video game. It's pretty good. Actually, it's probably more Contest of Champions. Yeah. But yeah, so this is their version of that. And yeah, they're adding some more folks. I haven't played them game in a minute. So cool. DC proves Blue Beetle is more powerful than anyone thought, because apparently something happened in Batman Superman #3 to suggest this. Oh, I guess he got taken over by the Batman Who Laughs stuff, and that being the Jaime Reyes version, not because that's the only version that is around. So, and yeah, sure. And apparently he's badass or something. Next up.
Oh, just very quickly on that Marvel Crisis Protocol, the models are hard plastic.
Okay.
Just curious, just in case you were looking for metal miniatures.
Sure.
Tom King promises tears with his Batman finale, and big surprise with the upcoming new title, Strange Adventures. So waiting to jump off Batman.
Wait, that sounds like the same thing that's being made into a show.
Oh no.
No, that's not. I think like there was a series prior to this, I'm assuming, right? Like they're just bringing us back, the Strange Adventures thing, because this one I'm not familiar with, and I'm not sure why I'm asking you, because you may be in the same boat.
What, Strange Adventures? I mean, I think I read the article on this. It's it's just an older title, and they're bringing it back with a new direction.
Right, that's what I was asking, but
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were personally familiar with it.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Okay. DC leaks Dan DiDio's official history timeline. So we talked about this being a thing probably last week or so ago, something like that. But during New York Comic Con 2 weeks ago, that's when they talked about this. And now DC Nation, which I believe this is their YouTube channel, has tweeted what appears to be part of DC's in development overall timeline. So it's not necessarily leaked, but it's basically, I dare say, short of marketing. That's my editorialization, whatever. Though it's not clear what era is being shown or exactly how the timelines of different characters show. And you can see the picture that is being shown here if you're watching the videotape. Jeez,
Right.
That's a date.
Huh.
But yeah, so it still means very less to little until it all comes together, and we don't even know if this is even the final thing of it. So sure, next.
So some schmuck heads in Spain decided to disrupt a comic book convention that was happening nearby where they were demonstrating, and they basically crashed the convention where you're supposed to pay an entry fee, and they're being far right schmuckheads.
Yeah, essentially. So assholes be assholes. Pardon my French.
I'm like, they're in Spain, so
I know, right? Supernatural comic book blade. Afterlife combines ride sharing and hell, which some would argue is pretty much the same thing. Creators Chip Zdarsky and Jason Liu talk about their new action comedy from Amazon's Comixology. So apparently this is going to be under the Comixology. I forgot what the name of it, but their digital only thing. See, in Comixology's new original title, After Left, The Road to Hell is apparently going to be paved with rideshare rating, created by Chip Zdarsky and Jason Liu. The 5-parter series centers on Janice, a rideshare driver with an unlikely destination, hell itself. The series will also feature Paris Alien as colorist and Aditya Bidikar as letterer. Alison O'Toole acts as editor. So this sounds like something that's probably going to get made into some sort of a TV show or a feature based on that. But this is also an interview with Zdarsky, so you can check that out at your leisure.
Alrighty, and last,
If it says when this is coming, but sure, never know.
I was about to say, and last but certainly not least, a longtime Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan, writer, and artist Sophie Campbell is leading the 5 Turtles into a dynamic new era, beginning with November 18th, TMNT number 101. I had heard news about this, and it's interesting that, obviously now there's a female turtle. That's the 5th turtle. Spoiler alert.
Not the first time, for those of you of a certain vintage.
Right. And this definitely sounds like a good jumping on point for anyone who is a long lapsed turtle reader like myself.
Perhaps, except for you would want to well, we talked about it, how this 5th turtle came about, and I feel like the City of War thing has been going for like ever, and it's because I feel like there's been another event that happened,
right? But
this also called that, but
right,
anyway.
but apparently this article notes that she's taking over the title as of 101. And it's going to have a smaller cast, and it's going to involve mutated animals, street gangs, and and as I said, a smaller cast, which makes it, I think, ideal for someone who is looking to jump on. Which
some would argue, well, that book had no shortage of mutated animals anyway, because from what I glanced at some stuff, there was a bunch of them just there. I'm like, what's going on here? Let me get away from this book. But yes, the smaller cast, I guess, to make it a little bit more focused. So cool.
Sounds good. All right.
The cover, which kind of looks like wait, that's not the actual cover. Oh wait, is there a
could be a variant?
No. That looks like from a game. It says credit Palladium Games. I don't know if that's denoting that someone made it into an RPG or something, which that's not a surprise.
Well, that's the old RPG, probably.
Yeah. So, it says here, as a matter of fact, that's why it's here, because basically it's the inspiration of what got her into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the first place. Because it says here, right, what really got me into it was a friend down the street has some of the Mirage comics and Palladium's TMNT and Other Strangeness, which you just saw the cover for, tabletop RPG book. I fell in love with that stuff and even painted the mask on my turtle books. Or, excuse me, on my turtle toys, all red like in the comics. So, there you go.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's dope. So that is it, folks. How about one last ad read?
Our last ad read of the night has always been My Comic Shop. Today's podcast is sponsored by My Comic Shop. Go to cspn.us, then click on the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, click on the My Comic Shop banner and order from a vast selection of new releases, back issues of vintage classics, graphic novels, and more to be delivered right to your door. Why bother schlepping to the local comic book store, but you should, when you can still order your books online. My Comic Shop through cspn.us. Doesn't hurt if you do both. Do it today.
Support your local comic shop, folks.
There you go.
And game shops, by the way. Support your local game shops.
If you have them.
If you have them, because I know Amazon can be cheaper than some of those game shops. But hey, we'll support. For that Magic, for that Marvel game and Magic the Gathering and all the other games and that Disney villainous game apparently is people are liking. The board game. Anywho, we have come to the end of another exciting episode of this here Comic Book Chronicles. Again, happy Halloween for those who, whatever this instantly dates that, because at this time Halloween's is like
over. Pace yourself on that candy, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. And that candy apple. Well, do they do candy apples? I don't know. I don't remember. I feel like I've seen somebody giving out candy apples, which that was a weird thing.
And if you got a rock, you may not want to have cut so many eyes in your blanket as a ghost.
You know what? If you don't get that reference, I don't know what to say about you, because they still play that. I'm sure they still play that somewhere.
They do.
So, man, now you got me wanting to watch it. Damn it. Anyway.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
And if you don't understand where that's from, you may still be out in the pumpkin patch waiting for the great pumpkin.
I did see although it was a little more salacious rendition of that particular thing on Tumblr, and I was like, okay, that's yeah. Anyway, not saying I'm not whatever. Actually, it reminds me of another book that came out this week that I should have read and didn't. But anyway, folks, we will be back next week for another exciting episode for the show, because we are still not under movie protocol yet.
Not for a while.
No, not until December. And even then, we already talked about that.
Yep.
So for then, for myself, Roddykat on Twitter and Instagram and pretty much any other places you might see me, except for the porn places. That's no. Not shaming, just saying. I'm
still waiting to ring the cash register.
I got a minute to go. CB Caps on Instagram and News Nerds Need on Twitter.
There we go.
_70 on Twitter and Instagram.
Yes, I'm almost done with Inktober. Probably gonna get these two done by the weekend. There you go.
Probably not the appropriate sound effect, but that's even better. Or, as we said at the top of the show,
is Brooklyn in the house without a doubt.
Oh, there you go.
And also PCN_dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and all of the sites they're in. Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, CB Cron on Twitter, which is the Comic Book Chronicles account. The Click Nation, that's DKLIQNATION on Twitter, and theclicknation.com. Also, Comic Book Resources, where we are. Well, he's over there writing his face off. We ain't doing nothing over there.
We're just reading it.
Yes. To do this here show on that would be, well, anyway, let me stop. CSPN.us, the Cold Slither Podcast Network, is where you will find this here podcast and a whole bunch of others.
Do it today.
So I threw him off with the order of that. Also, you can find this podcast on Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Cold Slither Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. And with that, folks, let me fix something real quick. But I will say, oh no, I can't do that. Oh, that's weird. Anyway, we will be back next week, folks. Have a good time. Don't get too sick on the candy. And we are out.
Peace. One.
I love it when a plan comes together.